Hello friends, welcome to the channel. My name is Alckemy, hope that you all are doing awesome. Welcome to episode 1 of the Art of the Drop, Beat Sorcery, all things in between. This is going to be a brand new series about call and response, and I feel like this is a natural progression for the channel to where I am going to be teaching you about call and response strategies for case studies of specific beats. So I'm not really too sure about this format yet. There's going to be lots of different chair adjustments, lots of different things, but I am going to try to keep your attention over here to have more engagement for this, but also teach you some really cool stuff about how beats are crafted. So with that out of the way, welcome to episode 1. We are going to be focusing on how to make a call and response / a drop out of a melody. This should be independent of whatever genre you choose. It's just taking the theme of the composition and exposing it. And shout out, this whole thing was basically like the whole inception of this idea was somebody said that I don't know anything about music composition, so read between the lines to that person. Just kidding. Could you like and subscribe to the video? That would be awesome. Check out alchemy.com for everything. And that's all I have on that front. I've got a new phase plant pack coming out pretty soon, actually. So maybe we'll just use that. Now, what I want to talk about is starting with the idea of a melody. So what we need here is we need just a very basic sound. Please don't worry about the sound design. It's not all that important, but what we do need is something that is going to give us a starter kit, right? And basically you could actually, let's just take all this away. Let's just use a sine wave for the sake of being efficient. I actually write with sine waves quite a bit, and what we're going to do is we're going to craft a melody. Wrong one. We're going to use this one. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to put myself into a position to where I have just a very basic call and response melody. And if you don't know how to do this, this is actually one of the best places to start, because this is kind of the genesis in a lot of cases of call and response. I would actually say rhythm in particularly is. So when I say, hey, you say, yo, that is call and response. But if I go, see, it's a very basic call, response, call, response. Now this scales in so many different things, but in this case, when we're using melody, we can just use very basic things. It doesn't need to be a complicated melody, but we're just going to build a phrase that we can utilize to repeat 4 times. So if I go, say, there we go. Nice, we have a note. Now, audiation is so important, and if you can't come up with a melody, then honestly, no matter how bad you are, start singing or start beatboxing something. But basically, I already have an idea for a melody. I'm gonna go da 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 da. So do do do. Okay, and now we have a 1-bar phrase. So the da da da. Right? This is the response, and then the do 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 is going to be this is the call. The do 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 is the response. So if we were to break this up just visually like this, say here we go. Let's go ahead and spruce this up just a little bit, and before I actually even get into timbre or anything, I'm going to just move everything a little bit late, and that's going to help give it a little bit of push, I guess. So what we can do is we can keep this right here on beat, and then we can push this just a little bit late. So now check this out. Now with this is one of the easiest ways to start crafting a song, because to be honest with you, this can become so many different things. Let's just pretend like I have drums and stuff over this, but I mean, think about it, listen to it. Right? Or even if it was dubstep, we can go down to like 70 BPM. So we can do something like this to where it's like, I'm sorry, my timing is way off. Let me use the metronome to help me out here. You know, if you wanted it to be something that was more mid-tempo, you change this to, 100 BPM. It doesn't really matter. But the thing about it is that it's just the idea of a concept. This is notation. In fact, I was talking with my partner about this, but this is the equivalent of modern notation compared to a classic world, right? We have a collection of data, of notes, of timing, of rhythm and spacing that represent a pitch or represent a sound or something of the sort. And so, like I was talking about with these other videos that I've been doing with talking head videos and all that other stuff, really breaking down what makes a call and response what it is kind of like the base of how to be better at songwriting. Now, this is something that we just crafted ourselves, right? The thing is, and I just wanted to kind of relay this in call and response in general, is that you can like definitely just find a loop or something. Okay, that actually works. It's totally fine, but we're gonna make this a little bit faster. But we can make a call and response out of this. We just need to confine it within a measurement. And within this measurement here, say a bar, you can have a call and response. Let me delete this, sorry. You can have a call and response that's this long. You can also have a call and response that's this long. And you can have a call and response if you want to that's this long. Generally speaking, the longer it gets, the harder it is for the listener to pay attention to. But it is really important to understand that there are reasons why things work. There's also reasons why you should follow them sometimes. There's also reasons why you should break those rules, or like, I don't even want to call it rules, but that's kind of the development that we're trying to look at. Now, in the case of melody, I want to talk about some variations with this because something like this that's so simple can scale. So the main thing that I wanted to talk about is creating contrast between the two. Now, if you look at this, the notes are the same. Then also the notes on this side are not only different, but we're also changing the rhythm. So if I repeat that, do, 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 snoop, just kidding. But you get what I'm saying? So like using that as a means of rhythm, change the rhythm. Now, something else that we can do to provide further contrast is do things like this. We could, or we can go, and changing the octave or changing the instrument even is something else that we can do that you can utilize in which to build your songs out of. So if I go like this, and this is going to make sense here in a little bit because I'm going to show you something cool, but we can also change the timbre and just do something that's slightly different, say grabbing ourselves some kind of square wave. Again, this patch is not meant to be like, look at how cool this is. This is purely for academic purposes. If you're judging me based off my sounds, then go listen to my music and then we can talk or whatever, but whatever. So now, okay, well, we can make that a bass if we wanted to. So you get what I'm saying? So you can utilize these things and change them all around. And then what's cool is that when you start to develop this along the way, we can actually do other things like, say we have this, then we actually create variation to this that still stays home to what the core concept of this is. For example, we go like this, and then maybe with this we have something that creates a change that maybe changes the melodic structure or something. We can keep the same instrument, but we can go do 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 do. And then we can do like some kind of stupid pitch bend or something like that just for the sake of creating something interesting, right? So in regards to this, I'd probably want to just put it there, to be honest. So but now we've just diversified the call and response. We've made it a little bit more interesting. And even though it's very simple, this is something that I've learned from drum and bass in particular of developing these ideas. It's that the sounds themselves are not important. It's the matter of scaling. It's a matter of trying to tell the story. Now, the other thing that I want you to consider with this is that the power of a melody and even the power of a rhythm can be extremely helpful, because let's say I have something like this and then we actually go into something that's a little bit more serious, right? Let's just call this, like, I'm going to use a clip here so that way we can kind of just have reference, but we'll call this the intro melody, right? So we repeat this a few times. Let me go in here and find a different kind of pluck that might sound a little bit more interesting. Just going to type in pluck, I'm not going to say that word. Clonk pluck, day 13 pluck. Let's see what this sounds like. It should be fairly simple. Okay, let's take off the delay on that. Now let's give it a little bit of time shift, so that way it seems like it's going to swing a little harder. Cool. So that's something that we could utilize as an intro. We can open the filter or whatever. Let's say we repeat this 4 times, and then over here when we actually get to the drop, all we have to do is change the instrument or change something about this to where it actually feels like it's now a bass line. So the first thing that I would do is utilize this, make this D sharp 0, so to speak, and we can do just a gnarly bass with this that might sound kind of cool. So let me see, let me type in bass on here. Blaster bass, ultra bass maker, bass, 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 bass. Look at all this. Bass, 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 bass. Alckemy.com if you want basses, if you want lots of basses. So let me find something. I changed my mind. I'm just going to do it myself because why not? I'm like that. And at this point, rather than searching for something, I'd almost always just rather just make it from scratch because I know exactly what I want. But I'm going to utilize a very fast ring mod, just like this, low pass noise, frequency up, turn this down, grab a saturator, and we should have something that's pretty gnarly. If we go like this. Sick. All right, let's give this a little bit more crunch. Sorry if that scared your ears. I'm going to set the polyphony to 1, glide here. Okay, cool. So now what we can do is we can utilize a lot of this and have just a very gritty bass, especially if you're into halftime stuff that kind of sounds melodic. Maybe I can put this before the distortion. Cool. So even just as a matter, now what we can do is we can reimagine this line, but as a means of whatever we got going on here. So we can do something to where it's like, we can do something like this. And I've got way too much that was supposed to be legato. Let's back off of that just a bit. So we can go, and we can start to create some tails on these. Now, developing this even further, we can take this and start to do something like this to where we have this already. This is familiar because we're borrowing from this part here, right? But what we're doing here is saying, okay, on this time, we're going to make this just a little bit different. And that's where we can go in and start to pull up the cool stuff. So if I go into something like, let me grab a phrase maker here. Phrase builder. Phrase build. I think this is it. Cool. So, you know, we heard a bunch of cool stuff in that, and then I'm not really going to worry so much about making it sound professional or whatever, because that's not what this is about. But we can kind of pull something out from here and be like, oh, well, now we can go fishing for a sound that's going to be a nice little fill right here. So then all we have to do is replace that. And so now we've got or we can do something to where it's like here, and we can start to create different, more intricate call and responses by having something like this, right? So then we can kind of develop this even more. And again, now what we're trying to get into is just having a stream of consciousness, right? Because that's kind of what this is happening. And I tend to get quiet whenever I start getting into production mode. But what we've done now is we've essentially just taken this idea and figured out how to repurpose this with cool and different sounds or whatever, and interesting things in which to make it more complicated. And you don't have to be married to these sounds, whatever. Like the fill is inconsequential. It's more so just about here's something that could be interesting. Even with this, you know, or we could do day something day 15, day 26, day 24 neuro, right? Something like this. Right? We can open this up a bit over on this side. We probably need something like an OTT on this, but even still, right, we can utilize some of the stuff that this is doing. This is where all these basses that I use come back into play. We can even do resampling from the first bass if we wanted to, but you know what I mean? Like, we can find something interesting in there in order to be able to use. And so, you know, rather than trying to make the whole thing like this with just neurobasses or whatever, which we can do, it makes a lot more sense to utilize something right here to fill that in, or to even go, you know, this is just a dumb transition right here, but okay, I'm not quite happy with that. You got to make sure that it grooves. A little bit more, it's a little bit too jazz swingy, so what we can also do is, again, just keep the same melody but change the rhythm. Somewhere like right here in between, so doo-doo. And then right here, creating a little space, we can go back and utilize some of these sounds. So let me go ahead and turn this off. But so we get into this and we go, all right, well, let's go ahead and replace something right here with this kind of sound. Doesn't even matter. We can just use it as placement of do, 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 have some kind of fill right there. And that way it creates an expectation. And then what we can do in order to get into the next piece is copy this. Sorry, I am hoping that one day I'll be a little bit more accurate with what I'm doing. But going into this and moving forward, now we actually can diversify the call and response here. So what we can do is actually just leave this here and have some kind of space, or we can actually utilize some other kind of notation and type in fill. And within this now, we can kind of make this part more melodic if we want to. We can borrow from the earlier phrase. So we can copy off of this guy. We can also change the melody if we want to, or what we can also do is, let's say at the end of this phrase, I don't want to use the same thing, or maybe I want to change the energy. I can actually just go back and return this to the original sound. So now it's this needs to be a little bit high. It's a little bit messy, of course, which, you know, just flying through this is is bound to happen just a little bit. Oh, that works too sometimes. You can even do a fill like that if that, floats your boat. So you can be like, you can even do something that's like do. You can even extend this. So, or what we can also do is replace this here. So many things that you can utilize with this. So it's okay. You can also do cool stuff like move this off and start creating spaces like this. So if we duplicate this and set this up or something and start getting into the push-pull factor of making stuff sound a little bit more techy, to where we delete this, and we need to have something that's a little bit more harmonically rich on this. Yeah, there we go. So maybe somewhere in the middle. So here's the thing. Once we have something like that, then all we have to do is grab some kind of snare, maybe preferably one that's not terrible. Alckemy snare. Yeah. Okay. Now we're cooking. So we can, instead of thinking about trying to create everything else around this, we can utilize just the snare and start building the beat around the snare. Because generally speaking, the snare a lot of times is an anchor point. Not always, but especially in a lot of halftime music and stuff. We can utilize this and make this a little bit shorter. And then what we can do, someone just follow. Thank you, Abes. Utilize this and move this a little bit forward, kind of like so. And this doesn't need to stay the same. We can do all different kinds of stuff with it, but now what it is something that helps us have a relation to the rest of the sounds. So from here, I'm kind of looking for something else, but I think what I'm going to do, because again, I'm not really trying to utilize this as writing a track, it's more so as an example, but we can start to build the other elements out from this now and start to be like, all right, well, how do we start to get these to play nicely with each other? And that's kind of what the relationship of this becomes. So you see, like, this is a little bit early, so maybe perhaps we can utilize this and skip that and just start with something very basic. Right, and so we can even do something here to where it can go boom boom, right, because that part seems a little bit wonky, and this is where your musical intuition has to start to kind of kick in, because if it's just you just leave it and then just like toss everything onto themselves, then it doesn't really work in that way. But maybe what we can do is try to make space and prioritize the snare right there. So we can even do something like this to where we can try to move this away from the snare completely. So then this is where it gets even better. And this is why doing a one riff track is one of the easiest to pull off, because now what we can do is we can actually just take this, just pretend with me, okay, because again, this is all conceptual. We can utilize changing and utilizing the same riff but changing the bass again. So let me find like a noise bass or something. Let me see here, try noise sub, see what that does. And then from here, we can switch it up and say, all right, well, now we're going to add something to the groove, and now we're going to do something different. But now we go. Right? And because of this, oops, we can utilize this to enhance or to change up the groove or to switch up the vibe. And especially like something that's really fun to do is to like switch up the snare, switch up the percussive line or whatever, and kind of go along with that. But look, now we've got a part A, we've got a part B, we've also got a part intro, or sorry, we also have an intro in theory, right, just from a single melody. And no, this melody isn't cool or whatever, but it doesn't take like a genius thing in order to find something that's catchy. And in fact, especially with halftime music and stuff. The goal of this is to get a vibe and then figure out how to make the vibe as groovy as possible. And when you have something like that, you're just like, okay, how do I accent this? Because the thing is that even though you start here, in the same way that I replaced some of the notes with some of these sounds, you want to create a dynamism of a more intense or a more elaborated call and response with this. But this is where we start. Because even if this is all you can get to, at least at some scale, you understand how to throw a melody together. You understand how to build a very simple call and response. And we'll talk about, using one note bass lines and all that stuff or whatever in the future. Perhaps what I'll do is I'll listen to some songs and then try to take inspiration of there without being like how to sound like these people. I'm not open to suggestions at the moment, but I do want to teach you how to actually get songs written, especially if you don't sample, or especially if you are in the midst of making all of your own stuff. How do I apply sounds that I've made but haven't been able to pull it off? Well, it's because the way that you're thinking about it is about the sound, not about the composition. So hopefully this was helpful. If you need sounds, then check out alckemy.com. You can always book a lesson with me or check out the Arcanum memberships for all of my advanced stuff. But as of now, I think that this series going forward is going to be something that I want to remain public. That being said, I really appreciate your time. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments or suggestions about future things for the Art of the Drop. But yeah, other than that, this is what I have. And I guess to kind of showcase, something that would make sense within this, check out how I have utilized a very single, one idea, right? Check this out. That's the melody. Get ready for the instrument change. Sometimes it can be that simple. You just have to have the attitude with it. You got to be pissed off and be angry and embrace your imperfections. This is an old tune. This was back in 2022, but even still, it's one of my favorite songs, and it's very simple by composition wise. So yeah, anyways, hopefully that was helpful. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let me know if you like this new series. It would help me out so much if we have conversations going on in the comments, if you engage just by liking the video, something. Help me grow. Thank you. Much love, guys. I will see you in the next one.